take attendance real quick just to make sure, because if anybody's on the phone or something, just to make sure. So I have Diana's on, Basil is on, Doug Durst, Pam, Larry, Jeff, Alyssa's on for City Parks, and Purnima. I think we're one short because we have 3 from the borough president. So do we know if Eric or someone from City Parks?
Eric's here.
Oh, Eric's here. Okay, so we're good. So we're good. We got a quorum.
He's in the upper left, Hollywood Square.
Douglas,
in the middle.
Douglas, say hello so we know it's really you.
He's on mute.
I think I saw a thumbs up.
There we go. Thumbs up. All right. So should we get started?
Oh, there he is.
Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon. With a quorum being present, I will now call to order the May 28th, 2020 meeting of the Hudson River Park Trust Board of Directors. Due to the coronavirus pandemic and consistent with Governor Cuomo's executive order number 202.1 issued on March 12, 2020, this meeting is being held remotely via a teleconference, enabling participations of the directors and the general public. The directors have received the agenda materials in advance of this meeting and are free to ask questions or comment at any time on the action items submitted for approval today. Please note, however, questions or comments from the audience will not be entertained at this meeting. I note that the board memos and resolutions on today's agenda have been posted on the Trust website in the link entitled Board of Directors Message, and thus are available to the public. There are 8 items on the consent agenda for our meeting today. Number 1, approval of the minutes and ratifications of actions taken at the March 30, 2020 meeting of the Hudson River Park Trust Board of Directors. 2, authorization to extend term of contract with Arias Corp. For Route 9A landscape maintenance services. 3, authorization to extend the term of contract with Russell Reed Waste Hauling and Disposal Service, Inc. 4, authorization to amend the contract with Rycon Group, LLC for marine repairs. 5, authorization to amend contract with SP Plus for Pier 40 parking garage operation. 6, the ratification of the contract with Structural Preservation Systems, LLC for Pier 40 roof reconstruction project phase 4. 7, ratification of executing SBA Paycheck Protection Program application. And 8, ratification and adoption of the 2020 investment guidelines. Unless anyone has any comments, I will now call for a motion to approve all of the items on the consent agenda. Question? Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye, sorry,
Motion
couldn't
carried.
unmute myself.
Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, the first item before the board is a request for reauthorization contract for Pier 40 facade restoration. Ms. Wills.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And I want to say that I'm actually joined in this conference room with 3 masked people, Dan Kurtz, Deb Kuska, and someone you have not met yet, although I've mentioned him, Dennis McCartney, who is our Senior Director of Public Safety, who joined us March 1st, right before the corona outbreak, and hopefully one day you'll get to meet him. So I will start now with the Pier 40 facade restoration. As has been discussed with the directors at past meetings, restoration of the facade of the Pier 40 building is urgently required to ensure public safety. Planned work includes masonry replacement, repair and repointing, repair of enamel facade panels, lead abatement, and other miscellaneous repairs. In accordance with the trust procurement guidelines, an advertisement for a request for proposals for the restoration of the facade was published in the New York State Contractor Reporter and on the trust website for the period of May 1st through May 22nd, 2020. The trust received 16 proposals on the submission deadline. A selection committee comprised of the trust design construction staff is currently reviewing the submissions and evaluating each company.
I'm sorry, Madeline, how many proposals were received?
16.
Thank you.
They are evaluating the submissions currently, and there was obviously a large amount for them to evaluate. As the review is still ongoing, the trust staff seeks approval by the board to enter into a contract with a contractor to be selected for a contract amount of up to $2.5 million with a 10% contingency. The trust will advise the board of the selected contractor and seek ratification of the contract at the board's July meeting. We would like to get this started, given the urgent need, as soon as possible. Thank you.
This is a pretty
I
unusual
should-
request. I don't know that we've
Oh,
ever
well,
done
let me
this before.
finish. I didn't quite finish. Funding for this contract is available from the trust capital maintenance budget, from the air rights sale to the St. John's Terminal Building. Thus, the trust requests authorization by the Board of Directors to contract for the Pier 40 restoration work in an amount not to exceed $2.5 million with a 10% contingency of $2.75 million. Yes, Larry?
I just find it's unusual. I'm trying to think back that we've, allocated money before we had a bid we've settled on. Have we ever done this before?
Oh, we did it last month with the roof at Pier 40, and we have a tendency, if we're not ready, when we get a lot of submissions and we get good enough caliber of submissions that we know we're going to be able to pick a good company, then we have done this particularly in what we call emergency situations.
Are we looking at a repair that will hold for 5 years or 10 years or 20 years?
10 to 15.
It'll be 10 to 15 years.
10 to 15 years.
Could be more.
And how much money would we save if we did a 5 to 10 year repair?
There is
Zero.
no such thing. I mean, we're putting up bricks, we're replacing enamel panels. There really isn't a cheaper repair. We're trying to make it safe so that we no longer have pieces of building falling on people.
We're not talking about safety. We're talking about how much money we have to spend for a repair that creates safety.
Yes.
Yes. Is that a question or a statement?
I'm just asking if those were alternatives.
Yes, it's
that
for
we-
public
that we looked
safety.
at.
Yes, it's the amount. So we initially, Larry, thought we would do more work, and we realized from estimates that it was a lot of money and we did not want to do that. We discussed this with the board previously. So we took only the pieces of the potential project that were of an emergency nature, and we picked them out and then we rebid that.
We're not doing painting, for example.
So it is all for safety reasons, just keep the public safe and not have pieces of the building falling. And
Yeah, we're not talking about pieces of the building falling.
well, we
that
have
we
bricks
know.
that are falling, so
They're not falling that one.
we had them fall. Okay. Anyway, we've chipped out most of the broken pieces. We've had our mason do that, but now we need to repair it so the building is protected going forward while we're still in it.
Because I mean, we recognize that this money probably will be just wasteful money as other similar money we've spent on Pier 40. I'd just like to spend as little of it as possible.
So we had we went out for a bid several months ago. The bids came in much higher than we anticipated. And we spoke about this at the last board meeting. And then we went back, we carved out only the necessary items and we rebid it. And now we're here with what we believe to be the least amount of work that we can do on a, remember how large this building is. It's 15.4 acres. So we're doing the least amount of work. We've cut out everything from painting to waterproofing. We're just doing what we think is necessary to keep the building safe.
Any other
My
questions?
instinct is that I would prefer, I don't know how any other board member feels about this, and I'm interested in knowing what they think, but I would like to know and see what the bids say before I vote yes on an amount of money that I'm not quite sure exactly who's using it for.
Well, why don't we have
Exact
Kevin
purpose.
take you through the bids? Kevin, do you have the bids on you?
I don't have, the bids are lump sum bids, so I can tell you all the individual bids, but I can't break it down for you. We're in the process of doing that right now.
Larry, we have engineers, construction managers,
I know you're
architects,
doing
all
the right
getting
thing.
these.
I know you're doing the right thing, Madeline. I just want to do the right thing.
So if you just want to know the range,
Yeah,
Larry, the
We can do
lowest,
that.
well, first of all, it's probably good to know that we had an engineer visually inspect all 4 facades of the building. So they went around.
did they give us the engineer's report? Have we seen that?
Yeah, and that's what the documents are based on, right?
Okay.
So we took that engineer's report and we turned it into a unit price contract, which basically they bid a dollar value per linear foot of brick repointing or square foot of brick replacement. So we identified all those quantities, put it in the bid, put it out to the street. We did that the first time, and as Madeline said, we included painting and some aesthetic work items also. Those bids came in much higher. They were like around 4 million, 5 million. And so we stripped out everything that was aesthetic related. And this is strictly to prevent loose bits of the building from falling on pedestrians below. And as you know, you can walk around all 4 sides of the building. So it's pretty critical that we do that. So we put out the bids, and the range, the low bid by an unqualified person was $1,150,000. And the highest bid was D'Onofrio at $5.2 million. They generally bid high, but the median is right about $2.4 million. So we're confident that we can get the work done for the $2.5 million that we're suggesting. And we're going to try and get under that. That's the ceiling. It's not the minimum. So we still need to analyze the bids, negotiate with a bidder, and we'll try and get it down as low as possible. Madeline has already pressed me on this, let's say. We don't want to spend any money that we don't need to either.
Right. I mean, I think I know what Larry's getting at. It's been, I don't know, a decade where we first threatened to never spend another dime on Pier 40 until we had a plan that was long-term. And I think, we've been beaten down on this topic too many times at this point. I've kind of come to terms with the fact that maybe we're living with this structure for a long time now, and obviously it can't crumble right in front of our eyes, but every time we spend 2 million here, 5 million on a corner of the roof, it's painful. But I think we can no longer pretend like we're gonna come up with a new scheme anytime soon. And we can't not have Pier 40 function for us. So at the very least, for the trust itself. So I think this is just as long as you guys, and I have faith that the staff is being as cheap as possible and whittling this down to only what's necessary. And then you just have to suck it up and do it.
Yeah, and the last thing we need, what's going to cost us a hell of a lot more money, is if a brick falls off and kills somebody.
Right.
So we can't have that happen. And I'm comfortable having talked to Madeline a lot about this because, Larry, I completely agree with you. I hate spending money on this building, but right now we don't have a lot of choice.
I'm just saying, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, we used to say, we'll just close the pier, but I think we all realized we couldn't stay
Right.
that, that we couldn't be that extreme about it as much as we wanted to. So now we have to then, I think, just decide how we keep it alive.
Yep. For a minimal amount of money.
Right.
My point is that I understand the safety and the importance of the safety issues. And I understand that the pier is there for whatever time it will be there. I want to spend as little money as possible, consistent with safety and consistent with what we can afford. And that's what I want to make sure of. And in that spirit, I get a little unhappy or curious when I'm bidding on an amount of money and I don't quite know what the bids are for. That's where I'm at now.
And
That's why
Larry, there's nobody here who disagrees with you. I think I speak for everybody, and if I don't, let me know. Everybody hates this, but we have to keep the building in a shape where nobody's going to get killed and we can still operate the parking lot.
we all agree. Okay.
And I want to point out, you know, I know how this topic gets everyone feisty. I appreciate that. I feel the same way. We all do. But I want to point out, you know, we've had these conversations for years. And when we started about a year and a half ago talking about some of these emergency issues we're now facing at the pier building, now that we were taking care of the piles, Director Catlin said, well, the difference between now and then is we've sold $100 million of air rights to put into infrastructure on the pier. And whereas it's not something we really want to do, spend money on the pier, we do have that bit of money to spend, and it is all going to be spent on the infrastructure for this building. Every single penny of it will be spent. But we're not spending other trust reserve money. We are spending our air rights money.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Yeah, one last comment. I do think on anything, anytime something like this comes up, it is incumbent on us as directors to have a full understanding of what we're voting for and the reasons for it.
Agreed.
And if you'd like to see the engineering report, Larry, I'm sure Kevin can send it to you if you'd like.
That would be nice.
Happy to.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Do I have a motion to authorize the contract for the Pier 40 facade restoration?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thanks. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Okay. The next and final item before the board is a request for annual confirmation of the, we said some more stuff here, did I get them wrong? Okay. The Hudson River Park mission statement and performance measures.
Thank you,
Ms. Mills.
Madam Chair. In accordance with the Public Authorities Reform Act of 2008, state and local public authorities are required to develop and adopt a mission statement and related performance measures to assist the authority in determining how well it is carrying out its mission. In 2010, the trust adopted its mission statement. The trust board of directors must annually review the mission statement and performance results to ensure that its mission has not changed and that the trust performance goals continue to support its mission. Trust staff has prepared the performance measures report for 2019-20, which has been shared with all the directors. As noted in the report, the trust had a very good year last year in progressing construction, capital maintenance projects, and designing of new sections of park throughout Hudson River Park. The trust also had a large turnout for its education and public free events throughout 2019. The trust continued to expand its environmental stewardship programs, including the Trust Community Compost Program, and established a new initiative, Park Over Plastic, to reduce plastic pollution in the park and beyond. As noted in the report, the trust faces much uncertainty for the 2020, for fiscal 2021. Given the coronavirus pandemic, that will impact the availability of capital funds from the state and city to proceed with construction of new park sections and the availability of operating revenue due to currently closed operations in the entertainment, tourism, and restaurant industries that have historically served the park. Due to budget and social distancing, our free programming will be online for this season, and I'll speak more to our budgetary issues in just a couple of minutes. So if the trust directors, if you have any input to the existing mission statement, let's discuss it now.
Questions, comments?
Any questions?
No.
All right, so if we can request approval of the resolution seeking confirmation of the trust mission statement and the 2020 performance measures. Madam Chair.
So moved. I mean, is this
Thank
it's a regular motion?
Second? I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Great, motion carries, thank you. Okay, so thank you. That completes the board action items for approval today. I would like to now ask Ms. Wills to present the president's report.
Thank you. I want to briefly discuss our financial and budget situation. Dan Sekander and I are scheduling calls with the Finance and Investment Committee every 2 weeks to keep that committee informed of the economic situation related to the pandemic. First, our operating revenue has taken quite a hit in these first 2 months since New York went on pause. Many of our tenants and occupants have not paid their full rent these past few months. Our parking revenue is down. Most of the concessions weren't unable to commence April 1st. And the events that generate revenue, such as walkathons, runs, New York City Pride, AVP, Association of Volleyball Finals, were all canceled. Given the need to continue the practice of social distancing, we don't expect third-party recreation and entertainment events will occur this summer and likely the fall. As a result, we envision that the total revenue received this year will be significantly less than originally budgeted. To reduce our operating expenses, we put in place a hiring freeze and are also carefully monitoring all service contracts to limit services to those that are most essential to carrying out our park services. We've also canceled most of our capital maintenance projects that were to be paid by funds provided by the City Council and Borough President, unless there's a safety issue. In the case of safety, the few projects that are continuing will be paid out of our reserve. In terms of continuing projects to complete the park, the city has frozen capital for new projects, and we are still waiting to hear about whether the state will provide funding for Pier 97 this year. I'll now turn this over to Dan to give you a short report and update on our most recent financials.
Not if you'll move the requisite 6 feet, I can take my mask off.
Dan, your hair is longer than usual.
I know, and that's why I got a hat on too. Otherwise, I look, it's the bozo look, my wife tells me.
Great, we all look like bozo.
Affectionately. She
Right,
tells you
Exactly.
affectionately.
So I think Madeline has sort of hit on the themes. We're off to a rough start this year. Currently, largely because of depressed revenue, we're running at an operating loss of about $700,000 per month. On the revenue side, our tenant billings for May and April were a little bit over $3 million. Our payments collected were $1.2 million. And we swept the field with regard to security deposits. And so we took $600,000 of security deposits from tenants. So obviously, we're not going to continue to do that because they only put up their security deposits once. So at this rate, and we're hoping things will improve, of course, but at this rate, unfortunately, our operating revenue may be as low as half of what we budgeted for in the end of March, which was a reduction from the preliminary plan that you all saw in January. For expenses, we are cutting where we can. Right now, we're looking at our personnel costs, which again are already lower than what was initially anticipated. We're expecting about a 5 to 10% reduction in personnel costs, hopefully just through attrition. I can say that we've asked the union to defer its scheduled pay increase for this year, and we're waiting for them to get back to us on that. We're hopeful that they will agree to do that. Our other expenses, we have a number of our expenses are fairly fixed when it comes to operations. Insurance, we don't have a lot of leeway there. Janitorial sanitation, we've been tasked for maintaining the park as a clean, disinfected park for people to utilize in the current crisis. So we don't have a lot of maneuvering room there. Light and power, not a lot of maneuverability there. And we're trying to maintain security through PEP. So those are sort of the large fixed cost items. We don't think there are a lot of savings in those areas. But with regard to OTPS related to park programs, park activities, Madeline has directed us to look at each individual line with regard to the expenses there. Some of the savings are self-actualizing because events are being canceled, things that we pay for. But we're looking to do an overall reduction of OTPS costs of 20%. So we'll continue to report to you on every meeting, in terms of where we are in that budget, but we're looking at approximately a 20% savings on OTPS costs. As Madeline indicated, capital maintenance, with the exception of things that we have to do, we're looking to defer that to next year. So the larger capital maintenance projects that we had anticipated doing this year that were funded out of non-air rights money, where possible, we're looking to defer those to next year. May result in a slightly greater cost next year, but until we have a better fix on what our overall cash position is, in let's say August, September, we're probably not in a position to do that. So that sort of concludes it in my report. I sent as a PDF, if people had an opportunity to look at it before this board meeting. We sent you sort of an interim statement for April, May, and then the financial report and financial statements for the single month, which is completed, which is just April. Since we do our financials on an accrual basis, I'm going to say it doesn't really accurately reflect where we're going to wind up in April because, we show operating revenue a little bit more robust there because it's based on the billings, not the collections. So anybody have any questions with regard to where we are currently on our finances?
Yeah, I agree with Larry.
It's a
I know
three
it,
shake.
that was
It's
so
a-
well put.
It was
Yeah.
really well put.
I can say we're in contact regularly with all the tenants. We're doing our best. Many of the tenants have agreed to make partial payments. We think it's important that we receive some money from tenants, so they are in the habit of, regardless of their business situation. With regard to operating revenue, we're looking at each item as it comes in, and we're speaking to all the department heads. Madeline has sort of given them direction to again look at their expenses and cut where possible. So we're trying to be protective and trying to protect the funds that we have, the reserves that we have, because as you all know, we don't receive operating money from the city or the state. Capital maintenance can throw us for a loop when there's a large project which is unfunded. Our air rights money, we have in the bank, but it's all committed. It's all committed either for Pier 40 piles, other Pier 40 infrastructure costs, and the money that we received from the Block 675, for was it Lalazarian and Douglason. We've committed to the city and Department of City Planning. That's going to go for specific construction projects in Community Board 4. So we don't have a lot of leeway there. So we're trying to be as conservative and protective as possible under the circumstances and still keep the organization running.
This conversation often leaves people speechless. That's the way the finance committee was.
Yeah.
So again, we'll continue to keep people updated on the finance committee. If anybody else on the board has any question, feel free to give myself and Madeline a call at any time.
So who's not paying us who we think can pay us?
I beg your pardon?
Who's not paying us who we think can?
I think we should probably discuss that offline.
Okay. Sorry.
And we've had a couple of programs that we kind of looked at in the past and said, well, we didn't want to go through them, such as the local buildings and real estate issue with getting paid more from the buildings that have benefited by the park. We have a couple of things we looked at in the past. Is it worth looking at again?
It's probably worth looking at, but as you know, the city and the state are short revenue themselves. So if we're looking to, access a portion of, tax revenues paid by property owners along the West Side Highway at this point, may not get a good reception.
May not, but
get sales tax revenue and other items, from within the park, with the city, with the state and the city looking at that as sources of revenue, you may not get a good. And obviously the private property owners who aren't being paid by their tenants, are not really open to, to increasing their tax burdens at this point. So we're trying to do the best with what we have.
No, it doesn't hurt to ask.
So with that, I'll put my mask back on and Madeline, you want to return to your seat?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Madeline, is that the rest of your report?
No. try to end in a more positive.
A more upbeat.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me give you an update on current projects. Okay, that's happy. Despite COVID-19 related challenges, Pier 26 construction was deemed essential and thus work has continued, and that has already been funded. TrevCon construction's work at the ecological get down is complete. Stephen Dubner Landscaping and EJ Electric continue to install wood decking, lighting, paving, railing, site furnishings, and landscaping. Despite various supplier shutdowns and other logistical issues related to the pandemic, we are still on track to complete construction by late summer, this summer, so that Pier 26 can be open to the public. So it will be very nice to have an opening. This project has taken 8 years to get funded and build, and so it'll be, and it's going to be very special. And at some point, if possible, if you'd like to come out and see it before, when it's safe, and if you'd like to come out and actually take a walk out, I'd be happy to take you. It's very nice. You'll like it. James Corner Field Operations is working on construction documents for Gansevoort Peninsula. The trust continues to coordinate with various utility agencies and regulatory authorities as needed. We anticipate starting construction on the south end of Gansevoort, which is the beach area, and also we will be installing oysters and habitat in both the south side and the north side of the pier. So this will begin in early 21, and we will be starting this project using restricted funds that are available just for this project. Milk Landscape Architecture and Urban Design completed the 100% development submission for Pier 97 on April 16th. Toshiko Mori Architects submitted a pricing set for the comfort station as well. The estimates by both BJ and our construction manager, Gil Bain, are being analyzed by trust staff and Gil Bain as we speak. Toshiko Mori Architects presented the comfort station design to the Trust Design Committee on March 31st and Community Board 4 on May 14th via video conference. The design was well received by both groups, and feedback we received will be addressed as the design progresses. In addition, the Public Design Commission granted conditional preliminary approval for the comfort station design on April 14th. Can someone mute their line where it's noisy? While temporarily.
Larry, I think there's a lot of background noise coming from your, thank you.
Well, thank you. While temporarily suspended when New York State initially went on pause, both Pier 55 and the Whitney Museum had requested to continue their construction activities with the understanding they would meet all New York State Department of Health and Labor construction guidelines. Thus, those construction projects are proceeding well, with Days End art installation expected to be complete late fall on the south side of Gansevoort Peninsula. It'll be nice to have that opening as well. And Pier 55 expected to be complete and open to the public in spring, summer 21. Pursuant to an initiative announced by Governor Cuomo last year to expand oyster research stations in the Hudson River, Trust staff are coordinating with staff at New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and Governor's Office to add live oyster larvae and gabions in the Tribeca portion of the park. I hope to have more information about this in the July meeting. As I've discussed at past board meetings, the Trust has released a number of requests for proposals for revenue contracts to continue operating a number of concessions in the park. The Trust recently selected the respondents for the remaining two, the Pier 25 Marine Facility and Pier 45 Seasonal Outdoor Cafe. On October 24th, 2019, the Trust released the Pier 25 Marine Facility RFP, received 2 proposals on December 12th. The Trust had sought 1 or 2 concessionaires to operate at 2 separate premises on the south side of Pier 25. First, the Pier 25 Marina, including the public town dock, sailing school, and mooring field that provides up to 32 vessel moorings. And second, an historic vessel to provide food and beverage concession along with educational and cultural program. The Trust has selected the existing concessionaire for both premises. The marina will continue to be managed and operated by the Pincus brothers under the name Pier 25 Marina, as well as the historic vessel food and beverage concession known to everyone as Grand Banks under 2 separate concessions. The Pier 25 Marine Facility concession agreements are each for a 5-year term with 2-year extensions available at the Trust's option. The base fee for the marina in 2021 is about $51,500 and escalates 3% each year and is now in operation. There are additional percentage fees when gross sales exceed $250,000. The base fee for Grand Banks in 2022 is about $139,300 and escalates 3% each year. There are additional percentage fees when gross sales exceed $1.875 million. The fees for this summer and 2021 will be a smaller base rent, but it will have a higher percentage fee. So if they do well, we'll do well. And of course, as you know, it's all takeout right now. On November 15th, the Trust released an RFP for Pier 45 Seasonal Outdoor Cafe that includes the Pier 45 kiosk building located between 10th and Christopher Streets and outdoor seating on its north and south sides. The Trust received 7 proposals on January 7th. Based on the criteria established in that RFP, the Trust selected a new LLC established by the Pincus brothers called Pier 45 LLC, which will operate under the name Drift In. As you recall, we have not had great success with this establishment, this concession. So we feel confident that the Pincus brothers, who have done really a great job at Pier 25, will be able to finally show us a successful concession, which I believe it can be if run by a good operation. So we expect this cafe to be partially open this summer for takeout once they finish remodeling. The concession agreement is for a 5-year term with 2-year extensions available at the Trust option. The base fee in 2022 is about $106,000 and escalates 3% a year. Additional percentage fees are also collected when gross sales exceed $750,000. The trust has agreed to mostly percentage rent for this year and 2021. One moment. Thank you. Despite our concessions not opening on April 1st, other than City Vineyard, which is open year-round, there are a few more that are now open for takeout to serve park patrons. Both City Vineyard and Frying Pan at Pier 66 and Grand Banks are operating for takeout services at this time. We're also working with Drift Inn at Pier 45 and Hooked at Pier 84 to provide similar takeout service. We are also working with these outdoor restaurants to provide seating that provide for adequate social distancing so that we don't continue to have overcrowding in front of these establishments. This will also help with the increase in garbage seen in the park and allow for more sanitary conditions. Any comments on that before I move on? Okay. The Estuary Lab staff is conducting calls and online surveys with teachers, summer camps, tenants, and community groups to inform the development of dynamic virtual programming that showcase estuary wildlife, giving those at home a unique opportunity to stay connected to the park. Park educators have also been sharing online educational resources to teachers and families, including a series of virtual lesson plans called STEM Activity of the Week, which is, by the way, our top most visited page on the Hudson River Park website. Our Public Programs Department is putting together an array of virtual programming, which will commence during the next month. We're planning to have many of our series back virtually and at very low cost to us, including Sunset Salsa, so you will get to tango from your bedroom, Sunset on the Hudson, and our jazz series, to name a few. The trust is, and we also have our exercise series. The trust has used public relations, I'm separating now to another subject. The trust has used public relations firms within the last 10 years to assist in managing its communications in lieu of hiring a staff person. In recent years, the trust has been a beneficiary of sharing a public relations firm, which was RFP'd and paid for by Hudson River Park Friends. In an effort to save money in the post-COVID world, Friends terminated their contract. Since parks have been proven to be a crucial asset, especially at this time, press inquiries have been robust, and trust staff has been unable to spend the time to adequately address these questions. Therefore, we now find ourselves in need of a communications firm. Although we're being exceptionally careful with our budget, we have set aside a small amount of money for this important function. Therefore, the trust issued an RFP for strategic public relations and communications services on April 24th, 2020. The trust received 27 proposals. In response on May 15th, staff is still reviewing the proposals submitted and will be ready to have this as an action item for the July board meeting. However, as we may need to have some public relations services before the board meeting, although this is not absolute, the trust may retain the staff recommended firm for 1 month period before the July board meeting, but only if necessary. Are there any questions about this, construction, design, or any other park developments? Okay, I'll move on then. As I mentioned at the March board meeting, the trust had to cancel the very last Piers 4076 task force meeting, although the presentation was shared with all of the members. The trust continues to discuss and share information with the governor's office that resulted from the task force meetings that were held earlier this year, and we're waiting to hear about next steps, as any redevelopment of these piers will likely need a change in the Hudson River Park Act. Meanwhile, as part of the 2021 budget, the state amended the act to require that New York City transfer Pier 76 to New York State Parks on or before July 1, 2020, and that the New York City NYPD tow pound vacate by December 31st, 2020, with the potential for the city to pay occupancy fees to the trust if the city does not show good faith efforts to find a new tow pound location. Trust staff has no update on this, but will continue to coordinate with the state and city regarding both piers. I don't have a lot of information on this, but if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. All right. Moving on, the trust is also working on a phased return to work plan per the protocols established by New York State. As I mentioned at the board meeting, when New York Press paused, the trust maintained a skeleton staff of essential workers to be in the park to address essential park operations and maintenance. I'm pleased to report that we were able to bring back our full operations, facilities, and public safety staff in mid-May. We have PPP materials, including face masks, gloves, goggles, and face shields, and have put in place a plan to ensure the safety of our staff and park patrons while working in the park, including having our personnel work 6 feet apart whenever possible, and increase cleaning and disinfecting of equipment and vehicles. We're monitoring the health of all staff as they return to work and have provided training to everyone that reports back to duty. To date, most of our administrative and program staff have been able to carry out their work assignments successfully from home remotely. We'll have those staff members that can perform their work remotely to do so as we await the reopening of phases 1 and 2 in the New York City region. Some administrative staff are already back in the office part-time, as you can see, and we expect to have a phased approach to bring more personnel back to the Pier 40 office, with key staff coming in different days during the week or on different weeks so that we can ensure social distancing. We're also rearranging office space so that everyone will be at least 6 feet from another employee, and have added considerable signage throughout the Pier 40 office space, including limiting the numbers that enter common spaces such as the kitchen, restroom, and locker room area. I have shared with the directors the initial plan that was filed with the governor's office using the template provided by the governor's office. Any questions on that? All right, I'm almost done. We're also pleased with the work in educating the public about social distancing and the use of face masks that have been provided by our PEP officers and the New York Police Department. We're grateful to the mayor for NYPD's assistance in the park, handing out face masks and encouraging groups of people to social distance. Trust staff has also been very diligent in monitoring the situation and continuing putting up more signs and unique messaging to encourage these safe practices. Any questions on that? Okay, the trust has provided the directors with the financials for the first month of fiscal year 2021. Total operating revenues on an accrual basis were $2,616,792, and operating expenses, including capital maintenance and equipment, were $1,876,656. The trust has also provided the directors with PEP statistics and a list of contracts between $100,000 and $200,000. Any final questions for me? Okay, thank you. Chair Taylor.
Thank you, President Wills. I will now ask Jeffrey Lefrancois to present the Advisory Council report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, everybody.
Thank you.
Nice to see you all again. Unfortunate, it's still via Zoom. The Advisory Council I took over for Bob earlier back in March, and the Executive Committee convened, and we really felt it important to do take some steps and do some advising as it related to the park and COVID, and this was all before the governor's really very formal executive orders took effect. So you received copies of 2 letters that we sent earlier in April, one to the trust requesting that they do more with regards to education and mask distribution, which, as Madeline has pointed out, the park is now doing, and NYPD has also stepped up their game as well. And we also notified the trust that the advisory council would be asking the governor and the relevant state commissioners to expand the greenway to make more space, more park space and more space for cyclists and pedestrians to practice proper social distancing. As a part of that, the advisory council also sent that formal letter to the governor making that request. And since that time, the community boards that abut the park or adjacent to the park have followed through endorsing that request to take a lane of the West Side Highway and expand the greenway to make more space for pedestrians, cyclists, and in advance of what is expected to be a considerable surge in folks using the greenway to get to and from work as the city hopefully gets further and further from pause. Most recently, the Advisory Council met on Tuesday, May 19th. They ratified those letters that were sent by the Executive Committee of the Advisory Council, and another letter came out that went to the mayor, requesting that if and when the time comes that social distance ambassadors are employed throughout the city, that we would request that Hudson River Park be provided some of those ambassadors to help with education efforts, mass distribution, and continued awareness around what's the right thing to do when it comes to COVID at this time. So with that, that's the extent of our report. So thank you. Any questions, but appreciate the time.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeffrey.
Sure.
Connie?
Hi, thank you. So Friends.
Love the background, I just have to say.
Yes, this is Tribeca with the allium in bloom. Unfortunately, it's not from this year.
You should have.
Hey, we still have gorgeous alliums.
It's still in bloom right now.
This year.
Exactly. So Friends received a payroll protection program grant back when the applications first went in, and has also since received a small SBA loan through the federal program for small businesses. We continue to apply for additional grants and loans as they become available. Right now, this is all we have that we're waiting for in terms of operating support. We have a grant that we have applied to for the trust for $100,000 from the Green Relief and Recovery Fund to pay for 5 full-time seasonal gardeners and a half-time seasonal gardener. And we're hoping to get the answer back about whether we'll be getting those funds by mid-June. Plus 2 Friends board members so far have donated funds to hire 2 more seasonal gardeners, which Madeline has in the works right now. We are cutting back our work week beginning June 1st to a 4-day week and reducing staff salaries from between 15 and 40%, depending on the position, with higher paid workers taking the bigger cuts. And we're eliminating any discretionary contracts as well. We're applying to begin we've just begun our spring membership campaign, which will continue through the end of June. And so people's membership solicitations are arriving in mailboxes now. We're also exploring our options for future office use. Right now, obviously everybody is at home. Our lease runs out on April 30th. We're in
August, Connie?
Sorry, yes, August 30th. We're in an old building in the garment district without any particular niceties about it. It has very crowded elevators, lobbies, unpleasant bathrooms, and is not a building in particular that we would continue in, other than that we don't have another space identified. So we're looking at the option of moving into storage when our lease ends, and seeing what the fallout in the commercial real estate market is like post-pandemic, since other than our events, most staff can function fairly well at home. And since events are not happening right now, that means we don't think a whole lot will be lost in terms of productivity until those come back. We're talking to our board, many of whom are in the real estate business, about properties they may manage, which might have some temporary arrangements we could access where current tenants are not going to be continuing leases and they're looking for immediate occupancy in some of those spaces. But that's something that we'll be discussing over the next 60 days or so to figure out what we're going to do. The park horticulture staff is working with our volunteer program staff to figure out what's needed to get volunteers out into the park to help pick the weeds and maintain the flowers. As soon as we're allowed, they're working on how to do this in terms of personal protective equipment, liability, cordoning people off from the general public, and all of the safety measures that will be necessary. But we do have a lot of volunteers that are dying to get back out and would actually be out there now if we allowed them to be. And lastly, we're talking to our board about the possibility of holding a small outdoor gala in October in the park, and getting opinions now from people what their perspective is on willingness of people to want to actually come do that. We were advised by one of our board members who's doing the 9/11 gala, which is in September, that regardless of whether we're actually having it, there's really no other option for raising that kind of money unless you start talking to people about being willing to donate to it if it can happen, and essentially acknowledging that if it can't, their annual donation will still be going in. So we're just starting that conversation now. And that's it.
Thank you, Connie.
So I just want to add that because we have a hiring freeze and because of the severity of our financial situation, we also did not hire any seasonals this year, which has taken a real toll on the park. I sent some letters out to individuals, and as Connie said, 2 members of the Friends Board and 1 other friend of the park have sponsored individual gardeners. I'm continuing to ask for people's graciousness in donating. It's $20,000 for a gardener for the season. So I'm putting that out there because, by now we would have many seasonals out there weeding and mulching, and we've had some staff members going out there and weeding. We normally would have about 2,200 volunteers out there weeding, and we don't have any of those right now either. So the park is, the staff is under a bit of stress trying to manage it right now. So if anyone knows of anyone who would like to donate and sponsor a gardener, that would be terrific. Thank you.
Thanks, Madeline. Anybody else? So I just want to say before we close, this is a really hard time for everybody. So I really want to thank you all for your support for the park and what you're all doing, because it's really important right now, especially. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to the staff too for keeping the park open. It's so nice there.
Yep.
Thank you all. Thank you for your support, and enjoy your week, and take care of yourselves.
Thank you.
Yeah, you too.
All right.
Oh, wait. We need a motion to adjourn.
Oh, yes.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
On favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody. Stay safe.
Everybody, thank you all. Stay well, stay healthy.
Thank
You
you.
too. Thanks,
Bye.
thanks, everybody. Bye.
Do I have to do anything?
No, we can, I can.
Thank you, Claudia. Now I'll get away.
A lot of people on that one, huh? A lot of people on that call.
Well, yeah,
It's vented.
no, we don't know how many people are on the phone.
Audio
Either.
off. It's vented. The audio's off.
It's a public meeting.
It's ended. The audio's off.
That's why I cannot say